This is Bloomberg Technology. I'm Emily Chang in San Francisco. Back to our top story, the hacking of the 2016 U.S. election. Earlier on Friday, Deputy U.S. Attorney General Rod Rosenstein announced charges against 12 Russian intelligence officials for hacking Democratic officials and systems during the U.S. presidential campaign. This just 2 days after lawmakers on Capitol Hill heard testimony from elections officials about securing this year's midterms. In fact, Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota told Bloomberg that, quote, "We've reached a new era in regards to protecting the upcoming elections," and she added that both parties concerned about Russia's interference in 2016 are trying to solve the problem going forward. So just how secure is cyber defense going forward? I want to talk about that with the CEO of the cybersecurity firm McAfee, Chris Young, who's here with me. So oftentimes hackers go completely unnamed and unaccounted for. What do you make of the fact that the U.S. government was able to name and indict these spies?
So first off, big hats off to the many investigators that were involved in this. There had to be literally hundreds, if not thousands, of people involved to get to this point. And as you pointed out, a lot of times cyber attacks happen and very little accountability occurs on the other side of an investigation. So it's a big step forward to actually have names and to have people held accountable for a cyber attack of this significance.
But these officials are in Russia. What can they actually do?
Consequences are to be determined, but it's a big step forward to make sure that we actually are able to identify the perpetrators and ultimately start this process of holding them accountable for this attack.
The U.S. government is frantically trying to safeguard our current election process. Is that possible in this amount of time?
I think the first step is really to make sure that we understand that securing our elections has got to be of paramount importance, thinking of it as if it's critical infrastructure, because it's foundational to our entire society. So it's important to make sure that as we head into the 2018 elections, everybody is treating the cyber attack potential around those elections with the right level of importance.
Well, election technology, though, has historically been in the Stone Age. I mean, can they do this by November?
Well, you got two different major level things you have to think about. Number one is information warfare. The second is actually the systems and the processes themselves that you use to execute an election. There's literally thousands of state and local governments that are involved to actually in running elections that ultimately tally into the outcomes that we see, whether they be at the national or at the local level. So you got thousands of organizations that have to be involved.
We don't have evidence yet that the vote itself was hacked. Do you think that's possible?
It's possible, but we don't have evidence yet that it's happened.
Is it possible, these hackers are always one step ahead. Could it happen in 2018?
The way I think about it is this, that if you're running an election, if you're part of one of the state or local entities that's responsible for running an election, the most important thing you can do right now is try to break the problem down. Understand what systems do I have in place, what processes do I have in place, where do I have my biggest vulnerabilities, and try to focus your effort. It's like anything else in life. If you have a really complex problem, break it down into its most basic components and start by going after your highest, your most important pieces of the puzzle.
These Russian officials use Bitcoin mining to fund their operations. What new threats emerge with the rise of crypto and the blockchain?
So one of the biggest increases in malware that we're seeing right now, like over a 600% increase we saw in the first quarter of this year, was in cryptojacking malware. And just briefly what that means is it's malware that's infecting users, not only PCs, but mobile devices as well in this case. And it basically uses the cycles on your device, the processing power on your device, to mine for cryptocurrency. So it's using your device, using your capability to generate cryptocurrency, which is how cryptocurrency is made.
So does that mean the bad guys essentially will have more resources to fund bigger operations?
The bad guys are market driven. Now, they will go after the highest probability of getting a return on their investment. And so they're finding right now that by infecting browsers, mobile devices, et cetera, they can mine cryptocurrency and cash out on the other end relatively effectively and with relatively little risk on their end as well, which is why we're seeing a rise in cryptojacking.
You also say mobile threats are on the rise. What do consumers and businesses need to be most worried about?
You have to make sure that you think about what are my risks with my mobile devices. So for example, who are my users that are using mobile, which is everyone, but what information do they have access to? What systems do those mobile devices connect to? Where do I have potential risk? And then how do I mitigate that? There are a lot of security tools and technologies that are available to better protect mobile devices. And I will say a lot of organizations and a lot of individuals haven't traditionally thought about adding more protection to their mobile device simply because we haven't seen traditionally as many attacks on that platform. That's on the rise. It's something we've known about for a while, but this is now something that I think is going to become higher and higher priority, not only for companies, but for individuals.
So how is McAfee adapting in this changing landscape? I mean, people aren't necessarily just downloading antivirus on their phones anymore. You know, the tactics are changing, the approach is changing. How do you stay ahead and make sure that you have the most current technologies to fight this?
So one thing we're doing is trying to educate people, because I think a big part of this is educating consumers and organizations that the mobile platform is something that can be compromised. We actually have over 300 million mobile devices that we protect globally today with McAfee software. So it's not an unused technology today. It's different than in a traditional PC environment, but it is something that we pay attention to. It's something we're trying to educate more people around. And we're actually adding mobile security capabilities across the board, from how we protect our consumers, how we protect our government customers, companies, and others.
So are we going to see you doing acquisitions to expand some of these capabilities?
You'll see us add, we have a lot of capability already. You'll see us add more to our portfolio over time.